This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to a new season of the award-winning Adventures in Compliance, the podcast where we look at the Sherlock Holmes short stories, movies, novels, and related material from the angle of compliance. The Case-Book of Sherlock Holmes is the final set of 12 out of a total of 56 Sherlock Holmes short stories published by Author Conan Doyle. These were published, of course, in the Strand Magazine between October 1921 and April 1927. The books, are two of the short stories, The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger and The Old Shuscombe Old Place, were the last of the Sherlock Holmes works protected by copyright. Although some of the stories are comparable with earlier works, many people feel that this is a lesser offering of Holmes, to which I wholeheartedly disagree. I hope that you will join us for this exploration of the final collected works of Sherlock Holmes as we take a deep dive literally into business ethics, leadership, investigative strategies, pattern recognition, and perhaps even portending the use of AI and generative AI as a tool for the compliance profession. There are some great stories in here, and I know you will enjoy them, and I hope you will enjoy this season of Adventures in Compliance really as much as I've enjoyed reading the stories. Today we're going to take up one of the least known of the 56 A. Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes short stories by looking at The Adventure of the Retired Colourman, which was published in the Strand Magazine in December of 1926. We're going to have a quick word from our network sponsor, Ethico, then we'll be right back.
If you're a compliance officer, middle managers are crucial in getting your programs from you to your frontline employees. But how do we activate those managers and get them on our side? Ethico's new Middle Manager Toolkit equips you with the skills needed to empower your managers, to promote a culture where ethical behavior thrives and employees feel empowered to speak up. Learn how to turn frontline managers into ethical leaders with our new white paper, Empowering Middle Managers as Ethics Champions. And did I mention you can get the whole toolkit for free? Head to ethico.com to download the full toolkit today.
And now, The Adventure of the Retired Colourman. Oh dear, Chateau Liverpool Street. Thus does Nigel Stock, Watson to Douglas Wilmer's 1965 Holmes, pass judgment on a lunch hamper he picks up at a railroad station as he and the aggrieved art supply dealer Josiah Amberley embark on a wild goose chase. Holmes himself devised it, or at least borrowed it from the adventure of the three Garadebs, to ensure that Amberley was well out of the way while he, the great detective, turned his house upside down. And why? Because while everyone else believes that Amberley's powerful saga of a pernicious wife and a treacherous friend and the theft of £7,000 from his private safe, Holmes certainly has other ideas entirely. Why is this ordinarily miserly man suddenly repainting a home that he has not seen a stroke of work done to in years? Could he be trying to cover up some nefarious crime, an unsightly stain, or even an unseemly smell? Why did this man, again out of character, purchase a single ticket for the theater, then claimed he bought two, one for his wife on the night she disappeared? And why does he seem so unwilling to avail himself of every opportunity that is offered to regain his wife and his fortune? Because pitiful, pathetic, and broken though he may seem to be, Amberley is a cold-blooded murderer who has lured his wife and her lover into a sealed, airless room, then gassed them to death while he stood outside laughing. The bodies he dumped in a disused well, and the disappearance he thought could camouflage with the tale of his adulterous woe. That, however, was before he met Sherlock Holmes and before Holmes met Barker, a private detective hired by the missing man's family to pursue their own suspicions regarding their kinsman's fate. A rival detective Barker was not the first man to set himself up as a rival to Holmes, either in fiction or in reality, but he was apparently one of the most impressive. And we will see him again later. And now, some business ethics lessons from the adventure of the blanched soldier. This story provides a fascinating study in deception, due diligence, and the consequences of poor leadership decisions. As corporate executives, we can extract several key business leadership lessons from this classic story that apply to risk management, ethical decision making, and strategic thinking. Number one, the perils of ignoring due diligence. The story's protagonist, Josiah Amberley, is a retired businessman who hires Sherlock Holmes to investigate the disappearance of his wife and a supposed friend, along with a large sum of money. Amberley claims to be a victim, but Holmes quickly uncovers the fact he's in fact the perpetrator. From the business leadership perspective, this case underscores the importance of due diligence. Whether in hiring, partnership, or financial transactions, executives must cultivate a mindset of verification and scrutiny. Some of the key takeaways are to investigate thoroughly before making significant decisions. Obviously, channel your inner Ronnie Reagan and trust but verify. Beware of emotional bias. Recognize red flags early and establish a culture of accountability. Lesson 2, ethical leadership requires transparency. The Josiah Amberley's downfall was not just his crime, but his attempt to manipulate the narrative. He painted himself as a victim while concealing the truth, a lesson in why ethical leadership is crucial for sustained business success. Business leaders must recognize honesty as a long-term investment. Corporate culture starts at the top. Ethical failures erode brand trust. And once a company is exposed for unethical behavior, engaging stakeholders on a go-forward basis can be more difficult. Next, communication is essential. Leaders must establish open and fair and transparent communications, and regulatory compliance is not negotiable. 3, the value of delegation and expertise. One of the more amusing elements of the story is that Holmes delegates the investigation to Watson and a local detective. This is partly due to Holmes feigning disinterest in it, as it demonstrates an important lesson. The best leaders know when to delegate. Executives who micromanage every detail in their organization limit their organization's potential. Instead, leaders should leverage team strengths, trust specialists. Time is an infinite resource and should be used wisely, avoid burnout, and empower decision making. 4, adaptability is a key to success. Holmes' investigative approach in this case is different from the usual direct intervention. Instead, he allows the evidence to present itself, demonstrating the power of adaptability. Recognizing, for business leaders, adaptability means recognizing when traditional strategies simply will not work. It's being open to unconventional solutions. It's knowing when to step back. Holmes' choice to observe rather than act hastily ensured he gathered the evidence necessarily. Encourage continuous learning and handling crisis with composure. CCC. Calm, cool, and collected. And lesson number 5, risk management is non-negotiable. Amberley's crime was ultimately uncovered because he failed to account for all the potential risks. Holmes easily saw through his ruse, and this speaks to the importance of comprehensive risk management in business. Executives should prioritize scenario planning, continuous monitoring and continuous improvement, regulatory preparedness, cybersecurity vigilance, and crisis response strategies. The bottom line is that Holmes' methodical approach to uncovering deception in this story offers valuable lessons for today's business executives. By prioritizing due diligence, ethical leadership, delegation, and adaptability in risk management, corporate leaders can navigate the complexities of business with the same clarity and precision as the great detective himself. Holmes' guiding principle: when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, is a mantra which every executive should adopt. In a world rife with uncertainty, applying these principles can mean the difference between business success and business failure. I hope you've enjoyed this episode from the final collected work of A. Conan Doyle on Sherlock Holmes, the Case-Book of Sherlock Holmes. As I mentioned at the start of this podcast, the sponsor of the entire Compliance Podcast Network is Ethico. So check out their free offer in the show notes, the Middle Manager's Toolkit. I know you will find it incredibly useful as a part of your compliance toolkit going forward. If you are a Sherlock Holmes fan, aficionado, or maven, and you'd like to discuss an episode, a book, a short story, or a movie with me, I hope you'll reach out to me. I would love to visit with you. As you know from this podcast series, I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, and I love talking to other Holmesians and Holmes-Lockians as well. The award-winning podcast Adventures in Compliance is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Would you like to start a podcast? In 2025, I think it would be a great time for you to start a podcast, and you can post it on the Compliance Podcast Network, the only podcast network in compliance and by far one of the most popular B2B podcast network around. So if you'd like more information on starting a podcast, please give me a shout. You can reach me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Hope you'll join us next time where we looked at some lessons learned from the adventure of the Veiled Lodger.